from page 62 first.
We're up, yes.
All right, Bannock County Commissioners are back in session, and we have with us Scott.
Good morning, Commissioners. Scott Crowther, Event Director, Business Manager. I wanted to go through we have a couple different budgets, I guess, to go through. So we'll start with page 62. Is that where you guys are at?
62, yeah.
The events budget.
Yes, please.
Okay. So just as far as a budget goes, I just defer to you guys. Whatever you feel is the best for our
No, I'm
employees.
looking at trying to do a 3%.
Okay.
What do you think about that security position? Would you be okay if we moved that to the sheriff's office?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
We talked about maybe trying to do that just to make it easier to plan for their gear, their
Mhm.
uniforms, all of the side stuff. It would just fall in line with the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm good with that.
I've loved having him up there.
Mhm.
Have you noticed a decrease in issues, vandalism, and that kind of thing?
You know, so he did like the thing that I was really hoping for. We have, by one of our pavilions and restrooms, we have a group of folks
Yeah.
that
Hoodlums.
camp there every night that do crazy stuff. And he's introduced himself to them, and he talks to them. And we have still noticed some stuff in that area. Definitely not on nights he's there, right? So when he's around, we don't see the same issue. Compared to last year, definitely don't want to jinx myself, but last year we were getting crushed with vandalism at this point in time, and right now it's more average. So I think that he is making a difference. He's a great guy. You know, we spent a lot of time. He wasn't really in the concerts. He worked outside of the venue during the concerts, and so I think people like seeing his presence. Again, super fantastic guy, and we have a great relationship with him. So I think there is a noticeable difference. It'll be hard to really monetize, maybe till the end of the season. So
He does a good job kicking people out of there too. And just having the gates locked at 10 makes a big difference, I feel like. So
yeah.
anyway.
And we work well together. You know, it seems like we still encounter those folks that are trespassing or maybe misusing the property. You know, and usually I'll boot those guys in the morning, but if they give me any problems, then I'll just say, hey, somebody come down and we come down and take care of this stuff. And as a matter of fact, it's funny because when Sheriff Monio asked me how he was doing, he referred to him by his last name, and I didn't even recognize his last name. I was like, oh, wait, we're talking about this guy. So anyway, he's a super good guy, and I appreciate him.
So that third salary line
Mhm.
on your budget, just zero that 55,000 out, 55,765, because that's already been included in the sheriff's.
That's already included over
Yeah,
there.
yeah, we already had it in there.
Is that one on the events or the event center
It's on the
budget?
event center,
Event center, okay,
Yeah.
great.
so it's on the one we're looking at right now.
This is, you're talking about
Yes.
the third security
Yeah,
manager?
the
Yeah.
security
So
manager.
that doesn't have to be in here at all?
Nope, because we have it in the sheriff's budget.
Okay.
It'll just be moved to, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things we had kind of talked about is we had the positions, the field assistant positions, then they're actually facility assistant positions, but we have moved that to extra help. Kind of had to do an alignment of duties, and we're trying that out this year with, you know, we had both those folks leave through attrition, and so we're hiring out of the extra help line right now to see how that works for us. It's been interesting to this point, so
So you think you want to keep that for next year?
yeah, let's hang
Okay.
on to that. I think that's the best way for us to move forward. I just don't think it's worthwhile to run those positions year round when we don't have the work for them to do.
No, you did not increase your extra help though, by those $2 amounts.
So
So
I thought
we
we
need to-
slid the one.
We did it this year, but because
Yes.
it was a budget revision within the year.
Oh, gotcha.
it's not reflected. So we
Yeah.
need to move that 70?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't
So
think we need to move that full 70.
How much do you want?
I think we could probably do 50.
Okay, so make that 30,000, 80,000.
Yeah. And then
That falls in line with what we have this year as
Yeah.
practice.
I think that's a way for us to save some revenue too.
Okay. And then that will trickle down into the personnel, those changes, or the benefits that we made.
Okay.
So let's see. Trying to see any of the major changes. So you guys, it looks like we moved the safety clothing down to uniforms. Uniforms on, that's good. Now, we did try to talk to Caitlin a little bit about how we use our uniforms budget. We do not have a set standard for when we have a new employee that we outfit them with X, Y, Z. What we tend to do is we tend to buy uniforms as needed. We'll buy some coats or some shirts or some sweatshirts, and we'll issue them to people. If they either get used or people resign or quit, then we'll either replace them or we'll pass some of those goods down to other folks. So,
Probably most of your regular line items are unchanged, right?
yeah, we had on the special projects, we'd used that 17.5 for the last couple of years to tackle some, really they were more capital projects than special projects. So I think we just moved that to the capital outlay list.
Okay.
And then we pushed the I can't remember which one it was. The one to Kyle, or yeah, for the computer one.
Oh, right, because you're not using
Mhm.
the asset management system.
Yeah. It's still our hope to send people to CDL training. We haven't done that because we're so busy during the summer that, and then last year, a lot of our summer happened at the end of the year, so we hired people during the winter, so we're not gonna send them. This year, we've got a couple of staff members that would be willing to go to the CDL training and sign the 2-year repayment option.
Okay.
So I know that $11,000 for the lease vehicle, that just gets rolled over into any vehicle, whatever you do, right?
Let me look at your list. Were you gonna buy one, or were they just giving you?
No, there was 3 new vehicles that we had requested.
We need to add that in here.
I think it's on the capital. I think I threw it on the capital outlay request, right?
Look at the backup sheet.
Yeah, so it's on the capital outlay request for the event center.
So the event center had a request to replace a Dodge.
The Dodge
Oh,
truck.
They're just gonna give you a truck bed. It was only $7,500, so I'm like, that's not enough.
So we're gonna move.
But it's
we're
just
gonna-
a truck bed.
Yeah, so we're gonna move the Ford that we have to the landfill.
Right.
We're gonna take that 3,500, I think that Dan has, and so 7,500 on the request for is to just replace that truck bed and go to like more of a flat bed so that we
The
can.
electrician truck,
Mhm.
the old one.
So the vehicle requests, per the fleet management is $125,862. That'll need added to your sheet.
Okay.
And I did throw in there a snowplow. We need a new snowplow for one of those vehicles because the snowplows are pretty
Now,
beat up.
is that on your capital
Yeah.
request? Okay, so on top of the $125,862, look at the back and add 12,500.
Then on the front page, on your cleaning supplies, you jumped $6,000.
I think I bumped our cleaning supplies up just to show what we've actually been spending. We've been spending a lot of money on the cleaning stuff. Some of that could be because of the damage to the vandalism reflects in the cleaning supplies because we get the bathroom holders from the cleaning supply places. But that's just what we've been paying over the last couple of years. I've noticed that our cleaning supplies has
Closer
increased.
to 20.
Okay.
So that's why I increased that.
We probably need to look at your electricity. That might be a little low. So I'll look
Yeah.
at that and see if we need to take that up a little bit.
For sure. And obviously, a good chunk of our electricity it vacillates depending on how busy the RV park is as well.
But you were at 76 and 87. You're only budgeting 80. So if you even spend 84, you're taking 4,000 from somewhere else. So we don't want to short you.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'll just look. We'll see what we can average it up.
Okay. I know, it looks like our water has been pretty crazy too. I think our water this year, because we've had some damaged lines, is gonna increase a little bit through Pocatello.
Okay.
So we had one of our main lines in the middle of the road. It's a valve that they've known for years has been bad, and it went out this year. We did have the option of tightening it up and letting it go for a few more years, or just replacing it. It was $4,000 to replace it. We just replaced it. But during that time, water ran. During high school rodeo, we had another main break, and so we got over and got that fixed as quickly as possible. So I think some of those things are going to impact our water usage.
That'd be a good thing though to know about, and then talk to the mayor. I mean, usually when there's a breakage or something like that, I know with City of Incan, we'd always, okay, we'll go back to your normal usage because of this is a problem. You're not wasting water. So I don't know. It's something I can talk to the mayor about too.
One of the things that, and this is something that we don't have a good map of our water system up there at all. So when the pipe broke, we thought it was a city pipe. We called Pocatello City. They said we don't have any water down here. I said, well, we don't have any water in this area, right? It was back behind the houses, right there off Fairgrounds Road. I made a couple phone calls, talked to Dylan. He's like, as a matter of fact, I think we did run a pipe back there into that area. So then we searched forever, and after 3 hours, find a shutoff valve for it. The last water break we had, it took us weeks to find a shutoff valve. It was buried in the road. It had been asphalted over. So again, we don't have any map. That's one of the things that we're trying to get knocked out is like drawing where we have water lines that run. So the water lines that feed the horse stalls down there, down by the indoor barn, the main water line that comes down to our property comes down just to the south of Pocatello Downs, the grandstands, I should say. Just right through that parking lot, comes down right there. And then it tees and goes down the road, and we have a 6-inch main that goes down the road and turns. And that is a private line. So all of our shutoffs to that main line kind of run in the straight line there. Well, then we have one that runs back and runs down along those houses and comes back to the horse stalls. So anyway,
So the line that comes in is a city line and then goes to a private line off the side?
so as soon as it comes down on our property, it's a private line. So the city water and the meter to that is up in there's some health clinics right across the street. It's up in there. So when they come shut it off, that's where they meter all of our water. So it comes down to that private line and then it goes and feeds the RV park. It goes all over the place.
But it just feeds our stuff?
And the armory. The armory's on our private line as well.
But the armory is actually our property that they lease?
If they do, I don't see money for it. It might be one of those dollar for 50 million years.
That's what I'd heard at one time, that that's
I
actually
seem to
our
remember
property.
that too.
I should probably check into that because
Yeah.
I don't know that I have, I mean, we don't insure it because they're probably insuring it, but I don't know that I have a separate, honestly, the grounds up here is just one big asset.
Yeah.
So it's not broken out as boundaries.
And I don't know that we're rebilling anything either. Because I think it all comes down on our private line.
So they don't have a meter? Or they do have a meter?
No,
Their
it's
own.
all on ours.
But it doesn't have a secondary meter going into their building?
Not that I've ever seen. I mean, it all, like, once it hits that private line, Pocatello Water doesn't have anything to do with it.
So we're paying to fill their water buffaloes?
Sure.
Yeah, we should probably look at that, because,
Makes you wonder about sewer too.
right?
All the sewer flows down to, it's supposed to flow down to that new Chevnick line that runs down.
Which we don't. Hey,
Yeah.
Interesting. Because, I mean, I was up there, I washed trucks up there, and they don't skimp on water when I was in. Just something.
Yeah, because that,
I'll call somebody.
because again, we've had some pretty good conversations with Pocatello Water. They do not have a line down there.
Okay,
That's all private line.
interesting.
The one thing I definitely forgot to add into the budget, we have got approval for, was the change to the website, to have the website maintained, the maintenance. I was gonna pull that out of our leased, the lease equipment, because we decreased our leased equipment by about 10,000, right? It was 7,000 for that tractor.
So you're gonna have a contract with somebody? to do that?
And I haven't got the contract done, and I still feel like it's the right way to go, but I'm kind of sitting on the fence with it. So we had Adam take back our old website. We've been updating it to see how well it works. And so I almost wanted to sit on it, but that was where I was gonna pull the funding for that, was out of that leased vehicle.
Okay. What if we just
Our
add,
leased equipment.
and how much is it, 7,000?
7,600.
7,600? So maybe in professional services, let's add 7,600,
Okay.
and then just, we'll make a note that says, website.
That's the hosting. That's the hosting for the website. And
Oh, that's
just-
hosting it?
That's hosting it.
Okay.
And
We'll
that's-
figure out where to put it.
Yeah.
It's fine. Because that won't be there. Possibly.
I don't know what else I have to really go over.
Anything else on that budget, or we can move to the events?
I think we're good.
Questions? Good.
I'm good.
Okay.
What page are we going to?
82.
And on this one, I didn't change anything from last year.
Other than we needed to add credit card tips, that's revenue we receive in, but we turn around and have to pay it in checks to the employees through payroll. So that amount needed to be budgeted. We neglected from budgeting that last year, just lack of inexperience, knowing that we needed to. But we did pay it.
Where'd you put it?
It's got its own line.
It's CC tips.
Yeah, CC tips. CC credit card.
And that's just, is that just gonna be whatever comes in, goes out,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. So that has offsetting revenue.
Yeah.
I know, I think last year, so we had asked for, like in property acquisitions, I think it was 250,000, and then we rolled that into PILT last year, right?
Yes, but it should have shown on here. So that must have been an after ad. Otherwise, it would show on here that there was a request. So it was probably just discussed through the budget process.
Uh-huh, I thought
That you
we
wanted it.
moved it over there, right?
Last year.
Yeah.
We've spent,
Budget last year was
So this means
4,146,000.
this was in the taxpayer portion of the spending.
No, this is an
No.
enterprise
No,
fund.
no, no.
We're talking about.
He's,
something-
he's
Oh,
asking
sorry,
about something
sorry,
else.
sorry,
so that 250,000, I haven't spent, I think we did the pre-party fencing, which is 31,000 that we build out of that. Additionally, I know we had talked about maybe doing the barricades. And there's a couple different options on the barricades. We can either buy new barricades, or we might be able to buy some of their used barricades because they're gonna buy new barricades. So there's some options there, but I haven't spent any money out of that, or I haven't spent that part yet.
Okay. The only dollar amounts I have written down was 100,000 for fencing, 25 for the barriers, and then potentially the Idaho Power area that we're leasing. I don't know what that cost is, but what do you think you're gonna spend this year,
This coming year.
this current year?
So we spent 30,000 on fencing.
Okay.
I don't wanna jump any more fencing on that. Unless we wanna work out a deal with, the fair board, cause I don't think they need as much temporary fencing as they bought, and we could use it for the Pocatello, or for the Idaho Power area. Because I definitely want to do that in temporary, I don't want to do that in permanent
But you would
fencing.
have to take that down when they needed it for fair.
So and we did that before.
They got a lot of fencing that they haven't even unbundled.
They
Okay.
bought a lot, and it.
When I was
mean, it
down
might
at the
be-
fair board meeting last time, I walked around for a while and stuff, and they got bundles that haven't even been
And I don't know that they want to, I think with their entertainment moving forward, I don't think they want to try to charge money for it. So if they're not going to charge money for it, then they don't need the temporary fencing. The temporary fencing was to try to help recoup revenue from concerts, which I don't think that's the plan for those guys moving forward. So they may have a chunk of temporary fencing. Not that we would need to buy it, but we may need to work out with those guys.
Well, we need to determine where it was purchased and how it was purchased and see what we can do with it.
Okay.
How many feet do you need?
I don't know the exact measurement. I know it's a lot. I think
Because you're
I think
gonna
there's
enclose the
enough.
whole thing, not just
Yes.
on the edges where you could drive in.
So there's the fence along Chubbuck Road, that's that 4-wire barbed wire fence. We may just keep that 4-wire barbed wire fence. So, but we'd still have to enclose the Fairgrounds Road, and then down across that new road, and then across the back with some gates that we could open.
Well, you have 250 this year. Do you think you're gonna spend 100?
No,
No?
I think we'll spend less than 50.
Okay,
It'll be around 50.
so do you wanna roll the 200,000 into next year? Or do you wanna ask to roll the 200,000?
If we can, that would be great. The problem with the concert stuff is we just don't know. There's so many ways to spend money, right? Like, so we pulled the rocks out and put sod in. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Look good.
Right,
I like
I think
it.
the sod looks nice.
Sue commented about it since we walked in.
Annie did too.
We still need to pull all the rocks out of the front. We're gonna put in some just the wood chips, refill the wood chips around the back. I think eventually we'd probably wanna talk about creating secondary boxes, which is where that new sod is, if we wanna turn that into boxes.
Do you have a barrier when people walk across all that bark so that it doesn't fall down? That might be more work, but something worth adding. I don't know how, because you also can't make it sit up too much because people trip.
And
But
part
it
of
just
it,
falls.
when we drive in the venue,
That too.
we fly over those barriers.
Yeah.
We fly over those berms. So, I don't know. I mean, we could budget more for for that. I can't tell you what our expected cost is. I think that at some point it would be worthwhile for us to probably buy some house, probably just some house lights, that kind of stuff. I think that's what we've kind of talked about. But I think as we go, that will be a good way for us to reduce our expenses every show.
So would it be okay if we just rebudget 200,000 for
Yeah.
event center from Pill? It's just gonna be money that were allotted this year and unspent.
Carried over, yep.
Okay, so let me add that here. Don't let me forget to talk about waterways with you also.
Okay. As far as education and travel, I think we spent close to that this last year. We might even be over on our education budget and travel budget for this year. I know it says we're 77,000 or something like that. Most of our education comes in October when we go to a conference. And then we went to Los Angeles to meet with Niederlander. I feel like it's important for us to go back to meet with them. And like we had talked about, I'd love to take you with us if we could to just talk numbers with those guys, because we've got to get a good accounting system that works for all of us, right? It's got to speak to you, us, and them. But then I also want to figure out what is the best from their point of view. What's the best way for us to go? Where do we need to go? Right? I think that they have a Pulsar live conference. It's in Los Angeles. We haven't gone to that one. That one seems like maybe a bigger event than the one in Nashville, but the one in Nashville specifically is the country, and we have a lot of country stuff. So I think I need to just look at that. But our request for this year could stay the same. Just understand that we'll need to still figure out. I just don't know what the best number for that would be. I don't want to bump it up, but I just want to be wise about how we use our resources.
Do you pay a registration fee when you go to, so we do need to have some money in education, because that's where that's what that line
The
is.
registration fees.
That's your registration. So we could probably just throw that back at 1,000. That's what you spent last year.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
And that's for the one conference. That's the registration fees.
Okay.
The other thing on this one is I know we bumped up to 3 million to spend on shows. We're not gonna spend anywhere near that this year. And I've been putting in offers for next year. Depending on, I guess, how aggressive or what we wanna look at, that number could go high. That number could go high if we went with big shows. So,
And it would be tough for us to open the budget because the revenue would come in later.
Mhm.
Again, it's an enterprise fund, so revenue in, expenses out. But if the concerts are July, August, we usually open the budget the first week of September-ish, so I would have to have all that revenue by the middle of September, well, middle of August, so that we could publish and run through that if we had to open the budget. So it might be better to set it higher and then just gauge it with revenue, what he could spend.
yeah.
Well, it's like everybody else. Put it in the budget. If we don't have it, we don't spend it.
Except in this case, it'll be if you don't have the cash, you can't spend it.
Right.
So, yeah.
I mean, we still have to plan for the future.
So one of the conversations we had today was about the process for repayment, right? So like on this show that we just ran, Niederlander might be floating $15,000, right? For the band and for expenses. And so they made, when we get everything squared away and figure out all of our costs and expenses, they'll invoice us and we'll pay them whatever they're out. For big shows, they may go out and carry a lot of money for even a guarantee, right? So there's a big rock show that we put an offer in on 2 years ago, then we put an offer in this year, and then we got an offer in for next year. And we put the offer in the mid $400,000 range. Now, the band came back to us and said, we want $750,000. They can't, the numbers don't support that. We're pushing back saying, no, we're not gonna do that, right? But in the event that we had a show that was of that magnitude, which unfortunately, if you wanna have shows that compete with anybody around us, that is the range people are paying. But if we did that, they'd have like $375,000 guarantee that they would be sitting out on. And so we talked about at what point on some of those big shows, they invoice us for a guarantee and we pay them back. We pay them for that half of that guarantee before the show's taking place. So that's again, those are some of the things that's why we've got to have some conversations just to spend. But obviously on a lot of those big shows, seems like a big risk, but it's really less of a risk than even the show we did last week. We could lose less money on a big show than we could on those ones, but it's daunting initially. So we also have offers in, just to inform you guys, on shows that we will co-promote for next year.
Sorry, what was that?
Co-promote, where we'll do a 50% of the buy-in. So we'll pay half, another promoter will pay half, and then we'll split the proceeds. So that's a way for us to reduce our liability, get a better show for half the price.
I think that's great, because and eventually we want to go in a direction of, we're not promoting anything, we're just,
And I think that's the way to go, and we want to get to the point where we're just we're running the venue, and because of our ticket agreement or our contract with eTix, no matter who promotes, they have to run eTix. So we will always collect the money and have to pay that back. So even if it's a full promotion, we're still going to have we collect some of the money, we collect the money, and then have to redistribute it. So.
There's no more shows this year, right? Except what's been published?
We have not gotten any additional shows, but if I could find a good show, I'd definitely go after it.
So theoretically, we could have
Theoretically,
another
we're done. All the offers we're doing are for next year.
show. How many offers do you have out for next year so far?
Probably 6 or 7.
Have you had any responses?
No, because we're trying to get on well, we have had some responses. Those responses have been, we want more money. But most of the responses are, okay, you fit in our routing. So where we really want to be is on the tour announce, not as an addition. So there's ways that those shows start costing us significantly more money. Like, let's say we have a big band, you name the band. We could say the Bengals, because the Bengals are awesome. Let's say the Bengals are touring, and they charge $200,000 everywhere they're going. And we say, you have a gap in your schedule between Kansas City or Denver and Washington. You have a gap in your schedule of a couple days, maybe even a day. We want you here. They'll say, well, we'll do a fly-in show, which means instead of paying $200,000, we might pay $300,000. But then we have to provide all their instruments. We have to provide a lot more to them. And so those fly-in shows, the production costs nearly double. So it's kind of a weird. We've just got to be careful with some of those fly-in shows. And so some of these offers, like if we're trying to get big bands later in the year, we've got to know, man, we could get this band, that would be great, but it would just cost us too much money. And so sometimes I say no to those fly-in shows because they're just too cost prohibitive. But that's another way. We want to be on the routing. But so if they're putting together the routing, the reason they're not giving us an answer right away is because they're looking at their total tour route.
See where it fits.
But then we can actually get better concerts because it's not filling in gaps.
And we've got some really good offers out there, but and one of the reasons that I want to go back and like sit down with our Nederlander peers is to also talk about what works and what doesn't, right? We tried a couple new things this year. We tried the Pink Floyd tribute band. We've got Kids Bop. We've tried Latin shows. The Latin shows, I have been hitting the ground with our Latin shows, trying to kind of beat the drum, and everybody I'm speaking to is floored, but it doesn't reflect in ticket sales yet. But I mean, it's like I can't even think of like a big rock band. Like it's like getting Rage Against the Machine. People are like, "Holy cow! I can't believe you guys got these guys." Help us advertise. So it's our Latin shows I expect to do well, but again, it's totally unknown. And we did the kids show, Kids Bop. I take a lot of flack from everybody I know about Kids Bop. We're trying to work it to be more of a carnival, and so hopefully that will actually be that should fit really well into our community. It's just to see what people want to pay for something like that.
So, where do you want to be on your budget?
I don't even know. I don't even know.
So,
It's hard for me to say because I know this isn't how much money we need to add to the budget. It's how much we can spend, right? Like it's that budget, it's that spending authority, right? And so I don't know. I would prefer to go high and not need it. Like this year we went $3 million. We may end up spending under 100,000. I'm sorry, not 100,000. Under $1 million, right? We went $3 million. We'll spend less. It doesn't add any additional money for us to ask for more spending authority.
It just means you don't have to open the budget.
I'd prefer to ask for more spending authority and then not need it. But I also don't want to give everybody sticker shock thinking that we're out spending a ton of money because we're really.
Because it does reflect in the budget, even
Yeah.
if we don't spend it.
So I guess that kind of comes back to you guys because that will be our cap. Right, that will be our cap. But understand that if we went with a big band, and when I say big bands, you're talking about, I think we talked about the Chili Peppers. How much was it? If I could get the Chili Peppers, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, I would jump out. But if I get the Chili Peppers, it cost me $2 million.
Yeah. Well,
You know what I mean?
I just paid $800 to see him.
That was their average ticket price was well over $200 a ticket.
For my wife and I. It was $400 for just me.
Did you get to meet the band?
I got to look at them.
For that price, they should have been having dinner with
It was sold out.
Yeah.
So along that line, you have a week to think about it and get a suggestion to the clerk, and then it can come back to us. I mean, this is something that we need to look at the overall budget, where we're at, what's going on, and how this all fits in. So I think that that's something that we won't go lower than where you're at, but if you need to go higher, we need to put that in. Is that all right?
Honestly, if we move it to any number, that number will be reflected in concert revenue to offset it.
Right.
Okay.
So it's not taxpayer dollars.
Right, it's
We're
not,
just,
because
it's
it
just
isn't
spending
enterprise fund.
authority.
Yeah, and whatever I
for
put,
revenue.
whatever we put concerts at, that revenue I put as a matching number.
Okay.
And eventually, when we get some history behind it, we'll know if I can put that number higher. But to start building reserves, but at this point, we just
But
match the
they
numbers
equal
up.
out.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that,
So
so,
I just.
And I mean, obviously, those shows, not only those shows, those offers dictate how interested our sponsors are with working with us.
Yeah.
So
So like $5 million?
that's where I would say, that's where I would think is probably top of the world for us, right? But I don't know that we're gonna get there. I don't think that we're gonna get there probably over the next couple of years, but it would be easier to set that number than it would be to maybe come back and have the discussion mid-season. Because if I make an offer, it's gonna be fast.
4th of July, keep that at 150.
Yeah.
And then
We know we've got a
concessions.
3-year contract on the 4th of July on the fireworks, so that kind of drives that budget, so.
What do we have in contract services again? Because we might be able to take that down, which would reduce.
Did we do
Marginal.
production out of contract services?
We might have, but we don't. It should be in the concerts. I think originally when we set this budget, it was, we didn't know.
Mhm.
And right now, because we have all the concerts, we set up projects for each of the concerts. And then any cost directly associated to the concert, we put in there. So production should fall into that concert line. The only thing that wouldn't would be items like overall marketing that covers multiple concerts because
Yes.
we can't assign it to one.
Yes.
So we
market
could
again,
probably reduce that down,
I agree.
maybe to like 40.
Yeah, I don't know
Spent
that we're,
25 last year.
I don't know that what we're pulling out of that, because I think the 25 we spent on that was probably marketing. But all that stuff should
Yep.
be affixed to a
Concert,
specific
yep.
show.
Or
So
event.
it should be in the concert
Yeah.
line.
I think, and actually this is my ARPA reporting, so the only thing I can think of that I've ever put in there would be the general events that aren't specific to a specific event.
Yeah.
So we could probably reduce that fairly easily, and
Do-
then just, it'll be absorbed above.
Do we want to, like the 4th of July, we have concerts is a lump for many concerts. Do we want to do like Bannock County sponsored events rather than the 4th of July, but do Bannock County sponsored events? That way if we did a trunk or treat and we wanted to spend $250 on
Why don't you
candy.
set up that as a separate? We've always had 4th of July as its own.
Yeah.
So let's set up a separate line, and then we could do sponsored events.
Yeah, sponsored
And
events.
then we could put whatever dollar amount.
Because we're not trying to spend a ton of money on that stuff, but it has a pretty good return on investment for us. Like the 4th of July, or the trunk or treat was huge last year.
So what do you
But-
want to put in there?
Let's just do maybe 5,000. I know that's not a ton of money, but that would at least give us the opportunity to go and look at, see if we want to do a fall festival or
And then on
Spook alley or
concessions,
something.
a corn maze.
on
you know.
concessions, that number might look a little bit high right now, but again, it has an offsetting revenue that should be higher than what that is. Some of those concessions, we've treated concessions as its own event.
Mhm.
So in here, we've got the concerts, we've got 4th of July, we'll have
Hotel Downs.
concessions as its own.
Mhm.
Hotel Downs is in your other one.
But isn't the
But
concession,
the concessions
the
go in there,
concessions
yes.
in here?
So
yeah.
concessions is our concessions, it's every event that we do, so that we can gauge revenue in for concessions minus expenses for concessions, and then we can see where we're at with the profit to help build reserves or fund some of these other things like the administrative fee, the sponsored events that we just added, those kinds of things.
So, I'm just talking about Bannock County events and stuff. when we had HR in here, we talked about having activities up there and having a county-wide or an employee-wide hamburgers or something that, I mean, last year we did the nachos.
Nachos.
Would that fit in here?
I would say no, that needs to be paid through the wellness side. This is just
Okay.
events that Scott's office or department's gonna hold and charge for.
Okay, I just,
Um,
were we saying Bannock County events? That's what
Yeah,
I just
yeah,
wanted.
because it's an enterprise fund, it's, let's do this event, and then we'll charge or get sponsors. Like Fourth of July is mostly sponsors, a little bit of charging for booths and stuff like that, and some concession stuff. We're trying to track each event revenue and expenses,
Okay.
so that we can see which ones are profitable, which ones aren't, which ones we know aren't gonna be, but are gonna be subsidized by something else.
The thing about the 4th of July is the 4th of July is not a revenue generating event.
No.
Like, we don't charge anybody to come to the event. It's just for the public to see. So sometimes we struggle to even just get enough revenue to do everything we want to for that event.
We don't do any, do we do concessions at 4th of July?
We do concessions at 4th of July, yes.
But a lot of
Um,
people bring stuff in too.
Yeah, but we don't, yeah, so we have food trucks in there, and then we run concessions. Typically, the only concessions we run are alcohol. We don't do any,
Do the food trucks pay?
they pay us a vendor fee for that day, but we don't take a percentage of the food trucks.
And there's also a few, don't you set up a few booths
Yeah.
that we charge for too, but it's.
Yeah,
pretty
so,
minimal.
so I think this year we're right around $4,000 for our booths for people to come in and actually participate with the event, which is great, but it doesn't generate us any real revenue. What we try to do with that extra revenue is, like, you know, we're really on the fence about bringing in a stage and having bands come perform on there, which we've done the last couple of years, because that is where our sponsorship money runs tight. So I think our sponsors like that too. They like to see their logo flash across the screen, like we talked about. So it's big for everybody. So I know we had talked in the past about, because we do go out and try to get sponsorship revenue. In the last couple of years, we've been short, I think, nearly $30,000 the last few years, right? Because there was our primary donor says, this is how much I want to pay for fireworks, but fireworks cost us more than that, right?
Yeah.
And so this year we found a secondary donor to cover that $30,000, and so that's a good thing. But
Okay? Anything else?
Question?
obviously, there's a million ways to spend money at the event center. We're doing everything we can, just with our staff and with the resources we currently have. I know that the volleyball courts was a conversation that we've had recently. We pulled we pulled sand out of the rodeo arenas after high school rodeo, and we put truckloads of sand in the volleyball courts. We dug out all along the fence line, pulled the sprinklers and killed some sprinkler lines out there, pulled a ton of sand back into the volleyball courts, groomed it with all of our rodeo equipment. I mean, I shouldn't even say rodeo equipment, we just groomed it with our equipment. We took our scrim from the concerts and we scrimmed the fence line to block the wind. And we had one happy volleyball coach last night.
Was she?
And you should have seen it today. I mean, before they were supposed to start at 9, at 8 o'clock we had 100 kids there. It is packed, but it's also safe.
Mhm.
So
Thank you.
we still need to talk about, like, at some point, got to talk about long-term goal and where we want to put that. But we're going to see how this works, and that doesn't cost us any money. We just throw time and effort at it. Just pull some resources out of one area and throw them in another.
Looked good when you
Our youth group used it,
did it.
yeah, a couple times in the last week, and I watched them before the big one. We had over 100 kids there before the big one, and Scott was down there working on them. And they were great that night. I think that's the best I've ever seen them since they were brand new.
They're better today.
Are
Like,
they?
you know, the post that will stick out from the
Yeah.
volleyball post?
Yeah.
On some of those, we got it level.
Oh,
There's only like 2 where there's a little bit sticking out, but we have thrown a ton of material in there.
yeah.
So, I think
Oh.
it's good.
Real quick, waterways.
Yes.
That's not, that'll be talked about a little bit later, but I want to keep it on the radar that if you have items that can be associated with the reservoir, is that what we call it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
There is money available.
Okay.
And we need to get some of that spent. To my knowledge, we haven't spent anything this year.
I've got a project, we're just waiting to figure out who can install it, but on the pump itself, there's a magnet that will, it essentially acts as a water softener for our well water.
Mhm.
And it removes some of the chemicals that are ground, it creates the ground, it makes the ground harder. So anyway, we can throw that in there. It'll be about $7,000. But if we throw that in that pump, it should actually reduce our water usage as
How much do we
well.
have, like 20?
We usually budget about 25,000, but what I try to do is, as long as the revenue coming in doesn't exceed the fund balance that rolls over, then we get to keep the money. But if we ever have that fund balance too high, then the state wants the money back. So we just want to keep the money
Spend it.
here.
Mhm.
Spend it in the county.
And if we
Yeah.
can spend it on that reservoir, then we don't have to spend it in other counties, even though our citizens use those waters.
Mhm.
We can keep it here.
And so the big aluminum dock is owned and managed by Fish and Game. They own it, they track it.
Is that on our assets?
I don't know.
We might want to make sure it's not.
I don't think it is, but I think
Okay.
so we had this discussion with these guys because
Yeah.
if there's any damage to it, they fix that big aluminum dock. The smaller docks we own and we manage, and there's like, we've kind of kicked around ideas to modify those docks to put ladders in there because people want to swim, but that is a hot topic. People think that area should be for fishing and fishing only, and swimming should only be by the beach. And man, I just think people use it. So, just like any other lake in the world, let people use it.
Yeah.
So keep in mind those items. I know
Okay.
it's rough right now because you're busy with other stuff, but even if you just wait until next year.
For sure.
But plan them maybe in the fall.
Yeah, I'll talk to our guys and we'll see if we can plan some things. And if there's anything you guys think that would be nice up there too.
It has to be water related for
Mhm.
those.
Can we
funds,
spend more
but-
money on the waterfall area and down? How's that project?
So the waterfall, we tried last year. So
Mhm.
if you remember, we put a pond liner in there.
Yeah.
And it was creating these big old chasms. We pulled the pond liner out, lined it with gravel, let it run, and it's worked great. The problem we run into is it just gets weedy. It gets weedy up in there. And last year we had the runners, I think the kids that come do the big running thing, that come down, they'll weed it out once a year. We probably could just burn it out, which would be okay. We turned the waterfall on to keep the smell down, and we had not had the waterfall run this year yet, because it also, we do get a lot, when the water absorbs, or the ground absorbs a lot of water, when we have runoff, it filled our lake up fast last year. So we kind of kept it off a little bit later this year. But it looks nice. We could, the bike trail is great. It's just it's a lot of maintenance down in there. And so, if that's something that we want to focus on, we definitely could. I don't think that it makes sense to
And
put a line in
that's
there anymore.
something that, with these waterway funds, if we contract it out,
Yeah.
some control down there, so that your guys that are busy
Don't have to.
don't have to do it, and we
That'd
look
be
at contracting some of these things out that you're talking about.
Yeah, as long as it falls within those guidelines of that waterways
Yeah.
monies,
Mhm.
you don't have to do the work. That's a
Yeah.
good point.
So
So there's no liner in there now?
no, and it works better than it ever has.
Hmm.
We just treat it like a natural waterway, and it just runs. The ground doesn't absorb too much water; it just pushes it down.
Interesting. Okay.
Because I mean, that thing's always been that natural.
Yeah.
It's always been just a natural waterway. We were getting those big eddies in there, so we took those out and we watched it. We don't get any of that stuff anymore. It just flows down and rolls like it's supposed to. The only issue we run into is just the weeds on the side, but they had the weeds on the side before. That didn't change anything. So, I think that we need to go up to the actual waterfall itself and redirect the water, because it's supposed to go in a circle, but I think we need to redirect the water and be good.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right,
Any
thank
other
you.
questions or concerns?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All All right,
Tell
looks
him,
like.
tell him he was supposed to be here this morning.
Oh. Do you need a minute, John?
Yeah, just a minute.
Okay, set a recess for a minute.